Viewers, as West Asia tensions enter a cool down period, we decode the fine print of the U.S. Iran MoU. On paper, it is ceasefire framework, but the deal goes beyond stopping the war. It covers Lebanon, Hormuz, sanctions, oil waivers, frozen funds, and nuclear negotiations. But multiple parties are interpreting it in different way. If we look into the basic nitty-gritty, let me take you through some. The final deal has a 60-day negotiation window. Iran promises no nuclear weapons and down-blending under IAEA supervision. But key nuclear details are still open. But before we decode it, here's that announcement from US President Donald Trump.
The one thing that's happening that's of note, frankly, the only thing that really matters to me, is Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And it says it loud and clear. They're not going to develop it, they're not going to buy it, they're not going to do anything with it. And if they do, they suffer unbelievable consequences. But the biggest thing is they will not have a nuclear weapon. And that's the reason I got in, and that's the reason I agreed to sign. If they do, all hell will rain down on them.
First, let's start with the deal. The MoU speaks of permanent termination of military operations on fronts and refers to Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity. But Israel and Hezbollah are not explicitly named, creating ambiguity over future Israeli action, Hezbollah activity, and the status of Israeli posts in South Lebanon. The Israeli ambassador to News9 has said that they are not going to vacate Lebanon. Now to Hormuz. The clause on the world's oil choke point focuses on restoring commercial movement. According to the MoU, Iran is to restart safe passage and restore traffic within 30 days. After determining and removing obstacles, toll-free passage is limited to 60 days. After that, Oman and Gulf states will discuss future administration and maritime services, keeping future fee and control over the strait, which makes me say that this is a huge concession given by Americans to Iran. They can start putting out a toll on the Strait of Hormuz and create a leverage for them, which will be unprecedented. Now to the economic guarantees for Iran, and these provisions are the strongest part of the MoU. Iran gets minimum $300 billion reconstruction plan, oil export waivers and permissions covering banking, insurance and transport. The sanctions language includes UN, IAEA, U.S. primary and secondary sanctions. Relief is tied to an agreed schedule, but the sanctions termination is now part of the framework. Iran's central bank can also designate beneficiaries for release funds. A lot of people are saying that this is too much of money in Iranian hand, $300 billion plus $167 billion in frozen funds, and then no one gets to know where the money is being spent. While all this is well and good, it is the nuclear paragraph that raises explosive. A lot of people are saying that it is weaker than the 2015 deal, which Barack Obama got it signed. Iran says it will not develop nuclear weapons and will downblend enriched material under IAEA supervision. The text does not mandate shipping out materials, shutting nuclear facilities, ending enrichment or defining tougher inspections. So until the final deal, Iran keeps the current nuclear status quo while the US pauses new sanctions and additional deployments. A lot of people are saying that the Americans have given too much to Iran than what they have received. On this issue, I am joined by Major General Sudhakarji, Dr. Jayant Das Gupta, former Indian diplomat, and Raja Kartikeya, West Asia expert, adjunct fellow, Takshashila Institute. Thank you all of you for joining me. Let me straight away go to Ambassador Das Gupta. So my question is, do you think that Iran has got away with a lot of concessions, $300 billion, reconstruction, $167 billion in frozen funds? They get to make a Strait of Hormuz in another D&D if they wish to. And lastly, there is ambiguity because they said they will not have a nuclear weapon, but they still retain the right to pursue nuclear program.
There are several aspects to this deal, the details of which have only come out, I think, in an informal manner, because it has still not been signed. It's not known whether it will get signed tomorrow.
No, it has been signed, sir. Actually, what has happened is just
electronically, yes.
Electronically signed, and the Iranians are not interested in going to Geneva where the Pakistanis are there.
Right.
So that's where the thing, thing took a different turn. They were waiting there. Now they are not going to go there because Iranians are saying that the deal has been done electronically.
electronically it has been signed.
Maybe they don't want to come face to face, sir.
Right. Okay. The point is that in comparison to the joint comprehensive plan of action which got signed during or negotiated during President Obama's time, and President Trump in his first term repudiated it, I think in comparison to this, there is only one concession which the Iranians have given, and that is that they will not have developed a nuclear weapon. I think this is, and of course, President Trump says that in case they do, all hell will break loose, which he has been mentioning time and time again. So that is the only concession, I think, from the JCPOA. But there are other very detailed aspects. I'm sure the other experts will dwell on those things. That the JCPOA was better. And President Obama has gone on record 2-3 days ago saying that I don't think Iran will sign anything which will be much better than the JCPOA. So that it is in keeping with what President Obama had predicted. The second point is this does open up under the UN law of the seas. This is the Strait of Hormuz is an open navigation channel, and nobody has the right to impose any toll or any tax or fees for that. So this is a concession, of course, in a way, because Iran says that it will consult with the Sultanate of Oman and with the other Gulf countries which are on the Strait of Hormuz to decide what to do. So this does open the door a little bit, but I think it may not really lead to Iran being given a free hand to impose toll tax.
Okay.
So that is the second thing. The third thing is for 60 days, the first 60 days, Iran will not impose any toll tax, and it will be in accordance with the pre-war traffic. Vessels will be allowed. So that is there. On the uranium issue, there will be downblending of the uranium which is there, but it doesn't mention what will happen to the entire stockpile. Downblending will take place for the.
I think Iranians, if you go through the entire memorandum of understanding which was leaked to the press over phone, which they recorded it and reproduced and invite in other publication, it's very clear that there are concessions. There are concessions for Iranians in this, and this is the first show where there are two Kartikeyas here. So let me go across to Raja Kartikeya. Your opening comments, sir.
Well, thank you. Firstly, Kartikeya Sharma ji. This is quite historic in some ways because we've never had a war end with a MoU. Wars end with peace treaties or other diplomatic instruments. You don't end it with a MoU. MoUs are signed between countries that are friendly to each other, not two adversaries to a conflict. Secondly, this is essentially you could say it's an interim deal because there is so much that says that these terms will be confirmed in a final deal that will be signed down the line. So I don't believe that this deal that's been done is a done deal. There is, we need to still wait and watch. Thirdly, if you look at the sequencing of actions, it's really interesting to see that the actions that are to be undertaken by the U.S. are those points are at the start of the agreement of the MoU, and the actions by Iran come after. This is a way of Iran saying that if the U.S. does this, then we do this. Now,
Raja, there's a bit of a
in any other way except in the way
there's a bit of a problem in your line. Let's fix that. I think your audio and video are coming out with a delay. General Sudhakarji, your opening comments.
Yeah, Kartikeya, good evening. Thank you. I hope I am audible. Yes, and very warm greetings to distinguished and accomplished panelists. First and foremost thing that we need to acknowledge and admit that USA has accepted defeat. Cannot be in this language, but the fact that Donald Trump has gone live and in electronic media to say that the world was heading towards catastrophe, therefore I have gone in for the deal as it is unfolding slowly. And therefore you find multiple concessions given or extended to Iran, and therefore it raises a question, the bigger question, because in every kind of conflict, the end state has to be clear. In the instant case, there was neither a start case or the initial state nor the end state. There was no clarity of political objective nor military objective to start with. In between, in retrospect, they kept on defining and trying to crystallize their thought process. But be that as it may, the bigger issue is that will Israel be prepared to accept Iran as a non-enemy state inside the jurisdiction of Middle East? This is the bigger question, because the existence of Israel so far was justified by Iran being as an enemy state. That is the boot question. The second point that I wish to highlight is in the opening remarks is that the rapprochement between USA and Iran is giving a clear indication that the Middle East countries are actually converging onto a common platform of de-escalation. That has to be understood, because take your mind back to what happened in 2023. Iran and Saudi Arabia, two adversarial nations, they came back to shaking hands, and there was a thaw at the initiative of China. That was actually a clear indication of a consolidated orientation, maybe subdued, of all nation states in the Middle East towards a de-escalation. If violence has not given them peace and normalcy, they were looking at diversification of their industries and their outlook towards geoeconomics, not to geopolitics and not to
So,
geo-oil of the fossil fuel.
I think,
So
sir,
keeping all this in mind, I would say, to sum up my opening remarks, is that it is too premature to say anything about the success of this deal,
okay.
because the spoiled spot is Netanyahu. If he pulls the trigger and continues or reopens fire against Hezbollah, because
Sir,
today it's
I'm going to play out that interview, not right after this show. I have interviewed the ambassador of Israel to India. He said our operations will continue inside Lebanon. It does not mention us, and we are not going to vacate it. He said this on record. You can watch this. It's going to be played right after this on point one, somewhere around between 7:30 to 7:35. I'm going to put it on here. So the bigger question is that what happens if Iran starts taxing Strait of Hormuz, and in case Israel doesn't listen to America? Let's go across to my panelists and let me ask them. Ambassador Dasgupta, in case this tax on the Hormuz starts and Israel continues its action across the river Litani, what will be the impact on the deal? Will it go completely defunct?
I think in terms of the expressions used in the treaty, the U.S. implicitly has accepted that, and of course, in the past few days, President Trump has also been mentioning how Premier Netanyahu has been behaving. So it is incumbent on the U.S. to prevail upon Israel, at whose behest this war was started by the U.S., to not allow any further attacks up to the Litani River. 600,000 people reportedly have already been displaced from that area, and it is a Hezbollah stronghold. So I think this is one of the things on which further, conflict and aggressive actions between Iran and Israel and Hezbollah and Israel will hinge upon whether the attacks continue. Israel has been steadfast in saying that we don't want to be a part of this deal. They have also been asking and urging the US to keep attacking the Iranians till all their nuclear capabilities are completely demolished. And the US has taken an off-ramp. It has decided that it has had enough. But the problem, the point that I think the other panelist, Mr. Raja Karthikeya, was making, it has cost them at least $500 billion to see sense, because $200 billion is what President Trump asked the US Congress to sanction for the war on Iran, which he said wasn't a war really because it didn't exceed 60 days according to him, and now $300 billion. So it is $500 billion for getting something which is which was already there in 2018,
And
minus the lives
absolutely.
and the property destroyed.
Absolutely. Mr. Karthike, there is also another aspect. A lot of newspapers have reported the language in context of the fissile material or the nuclear weapons is weaker than the one which was mentioned in 2015 deal that was signed when Barack Obama was the president. It is weaker in that context.
Well, I'll say this: there is no new gain for the US in this MOU that was not already there in JCPOA. Even in that, in fact, it was a stronger language. It said that Iran will never acquire, possess, or develop in any form a nuclear weapon. And whereas in this one, it just says that they will not procure or develop a nuclear weapon. So it is slightly, in fact, it's less than what it was in 2015. Secondly, when it comes to the development of the fissile material, the highly enriched uranium, what the Iranians were saying that we are NPT signatories and therefore we have rights to enrich uranium, and that has been preserved in this. Without mentioning that it's for the reasons that they are part of NPT, it says that all of Iran's rights will be respected, and as for the interim period, there will be a status quo ante effectively, saying that no new sanctions will be imposed and Iran can continue to be a nuclear power. I think this has, frankly, I don't believe it has got the US anything new. This last 90 days that we have seen have unfortunately put the world through tremendous pain. And all this for what?
And most importantly, General Sudhakarji, because I'll take the closing comment from you, the real issue on which the war began, IRGC, the killing of the supreme leader, it says that we will respect the territorial integrity of Iran. And there is no question of regime change if you go through the MOU. It doesn't talk about that. So the real political outcome, the America has forsaken.
Absolutely. Kartiki, if you recall in your channel only, when you're the anchor, I have been time and again flagging the issue and the terminology called as escalation entrapment. In the escalation entrapment, if you recall, I have also been making a statement that considering all the factors, military, political, economic, all the issues, it will be prudent on the part of the Donald Trump, his domestic constituency included, to take a sharp, abrupt turn, blind U-turn. If you recall, I made this statement. This is what precisely is happening, regardless of what the cost and the consequences is, what the world is saying. This is the only way out for survival, dignified statement like reversion back to his homeland or wherever he wishes to go. This agreement or the MOU is the beginning of that step to happen, number one. Number two, he has dumped, virtually he has actually left Israel in middle of nowhere, and Israel has to fend for itself, because when I gave you a hint in my previous remark, when I spoke about the end state, and is Israel prepared to accept Iran as a non-enemy state? Because the existence of Israel was directly related to Iran's existence as an enemy state. Now that Iran has become something like a regional power, it is not what we saw before 28 February 2026, and therefore, and there is a convergence of all the stakeholders in Middle East towards de-escalation. Therefore, Israel is going to be subjected to isolation. If it is isolated, then what happens to its existential justification? Will the Israel lobby in USA start asserting and flexing muscles against Donald Trump? Be that as it may, for once at least, the America has to take a tough call for the larger good of its existence as a declining power. Number two, for stability and for constructive strategic stability as enunciated by Z during their meeting on 14th and 15th of May 2026. Please do not disregard it as a meaningless event. It is a very powerful event which is going to drive the geopolitics, the geoeconomics, and the geotechnology in times ahead, because Z has made it very
General
clear.
Sudhakarji, what surprises me, why did they...
One line, he had made it very clear that avoid adversarial relationship and manage differences. That's all. It will answer all your questions as my closing remark. Back to you,
No, no.
Karthik.
Symbolically, why did they choose Versi? Versi sowed the seeds of the Second World War. And
May I come in on this just once for a moment?
30
Karthikeya?
seconds. 30 seconds. Okay.
30 seconds.
Yes.
14 points. You know, the number is not a coincidence. If you remember Woodrow Wilson's 14 points that ended, World War One, and it was a 14 point, so the fact that another 14 points have been chosen, the fact that they're being signed in Versailles, it's full of symbolism, and it is supposed to signify from the US perspective, perhaps, that major suffering has been averted. I have served in both the United States and in Iran in diplomatic positions, and I can tell you that I am sure this was not a coincidence at all. But I don't think, I feel that there's another conflict that is going to come. And I really fear that this is not the end by any means. This is not the permanent cessation of hostilities, even as an interim deal, and that this is just a precursor, just like Versailles was a precursor to what happened in 1939. I hope not, but I fear that there is another conflict in the making.
Okay. Let me conclude, sir, because I've really run short of time. I need to run that Ruben Azar interview. The point I was trying to make was, they signed it in Versailles, which sowed the seeds of the World War II. That's one. Secondly, the IRGC, the Quds Force, the entire infrastructure, which they call terrorist in nature, quote unquote, it remains intact. And look at what the killing of Khamenei has done. He has ended up consolidating the regime and enriching Iran. Secondary sanctions, primary sanctions, all of them are gone. They can say that they are timelines, guidelines, but at least they have written it in MoU that they will be taken away. And I think that's the most important part. America has lost this war. Ambassador Dasgupta was right. They have completely done an off-ramp. They have just run away because they couldn't sustain it. I thank all of you for joining me in this conversation.